Today we're joined in the studio by TalkTV's fabulous international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome. One of the big stories of the day is smacking kids. The doctors are urging the government to bring in more laws to tell us what we can and cannot do. And this time the government is being urged to take the role of parents and to ban mums and dads from smacking their kids. Now, I don't think you should smack your kids as a rule. I was saying earlier that when I was a kid, I was smacked every day by a whole range of adults. My mum, my dad, the local copper,
and look how you turned out. There's an advert right now for corporal punishment.
Didn't do me any harm. No, seriously, I mean, of course you shouldn't smack your kids, but now and again there must be moments where parents must be allowed to make that decision. For example, if your kid is running towards a busy motorway, don't do that. Tap across the back of the legs or something like that.
This legislation was actually brought in absolutely ages ago in Scotland because it was one of the first stories I covered as a political journalist under the new Scottish Parliament, and they banned smacking. So it is something that at that time I gave some thought to, not as a parent. I now have 3 children. They're far too old for smacking now. Look, it's not a popular cause to say let parents happily smack away their kids.
Of course not.
But please, can the state just butt out of our home?
Yes.
I don't want the long arm of government and its long, beady eyes looking into my home and telling what I can do as a mother to discipline my children when necessary. You just asked me before we came on air, have I smacked my children? And I would say I can count the times probably on the fingers of one hand, and that's 3 children. So the answer to that is barely, but every parent needs that ability not to be criminalised for incredibly rarely giving a child a light tap because either there's a real danger or, frankly, it's the only thing that's going to work in that moment. And no one ever feels good about it.
I mean, this is
but it does work.
We've got legislation that criminalises the abuse of children, actually injuring, hurting children. That exists. They are protected by law. And I think what this legislation does that doctors are suggesting the government introduce is it just encourages snitching. Because, you know, if you've got a child who's, running towards the pan of fat on the stove and you sort of grab them and move them out of the way and say, well, you fool or whatever, the child's not going to be the one picking up the police. It'll be what? Your neighbour who saw you through the net curtains. It'll be, Auntie Mildred who was over for a cup of tea, butting her nose
I mean, you
again.
say that the child isn't going to call the police, but you would probably be amazed at how empowered children are now. And there may be an argument that that's a good thing, but you make no mistake, young children know their parents aren't supposed to do certain things. Again, that is a good thing. Wait till they say to the teacher, oh, well, Mum smacked me for that, and before you know it, busybody teachers onto social services. Look, just butt out. We don't need this. The government has so many problems to be getting on with. It does not need to be interfering.
Yeah, it goes like this. I mean, this is sort of paternalism, and it's 2-bit politicians looking for their legacies. Rishi, your legacy will be in 50 years' time. No one will remember you at all. Whatever you do, it's the same for nearly all politicians. They just fade into obscurity.
Yeah,
the obscurity,
like a surname and a date.
Yeah,
on
the
a
obscurity for which they were designed. So they can't seem to sort out the things that we want sorted out, like our borders, like the economy, like law and order, and like this nonsense wokery, the insanity of trans issues in schools. They don't seem to be able to do anything about that. So Rishi says, I know, I'll ban smoking. And now next he'll go, I'm the one who bans smacking kids. Cameron goes around going, I'm the one who brought in gay marriage. Yeah, well, no one remembers, Dave. I mean, this is the problem. It's politicians who can't get to grips with the real problems of this society, coming up with other problems and saying that will be my legacy because they're big heads and they don't realise there'll be no legacy for them.
Well, at the moment, Rishi Sunak's only legacy is one of total disaster. He was up until fairly recently, he was very proud of the furlough scheme during COVID. But I'm afraid history has had to be rewritten on that one. And we now know the appalling, toxic legacy that has left, which is a culture of worklessness. And in places like Blackpool, 25% unemployment, a lot of people there feel that it's not worth them trying to get a job, and there are very few opportunities anyway because the welfare state is paying them so much.
That and his much vaunted fiscal headroom, which he also managed to take out in the process.
They're such egotists, these people. It's like, really, Rishi, honestly, no one will remember you. They just won't. I mean, think of all those you see these politicians on the telly, you think, oh, they're the most famous people in Britain. Then they lose their jobs. A year later, no one could even name them or spot them in a crowd.
I mean, you say a year later, I would hazard a guess that there is a significant number of people in this country today that would struggle to name Rishi Sunak.
Yeah, well, quite.